Hey guys, today is October 26, 2020, and welcome to my 2020 presidential election prediction. Today I'm going to go over my predictions for the election between the incumbent president Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. I'm going to start with states that I think are safe for each candidate. Now, 60 million votes have already been cast, which is creeping up on about almost 50% of the total votes cast in the 2016 election. We're about probably 40% of the vote total cast, and we still have 8 days to go before election day. So with 60 million votes cast early, a lot of states are already very likely to go to certain candidates, although some of these states are going to be keeping their polls, uh, they're going to be keeping their ballots accepted for another several days to a week out after the election. Some of these states might not be called properly right away. They might go to one candidate and flip after all of the early votes have been able to be cast. All of the mail-in ballots are cast and counted. But I think that this prediction that I'm going to have for you today is likely what we're going to see once everything is counted for. We're going to start with the safe states for Joe Biden. He's going to likely win the states of Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii. These are states that are just incredibly likely to go to the Democratic candidate no matter who it is. Oregon was the last of these states that would end up becoming reliably Democratic. I think all of these will go to Joe Biden. Over in Colorado and New Mexico, also definitely will go to Joe Biden. Colorado used to be a battleground state, but after recent demographic shifts and political shifts in Colorado, it has become a reliable Democratic state. So it is likely that Joe Biden will carry the state of Colorado as well as New Mexico. Moving over to um, moving over to the East Coast, actually, we'll start with New Hampshire is actually likely going to go to Joe Biden. Normally, in previous elections, this is a battleground state that could go either way. Clinton only won this state by about 2,000 votes in the 2016 election. And in previous elections, it's gone both ways. It's gone for the Republican, it's gone for the Democrat, it's gone back and forth. But in polling for this election, oddly enough, it's gone for Joe Biden by double digit margins consistently. I just don't see a path where Donald Trump will be able to make up all of that ground in just a week, especially where a lot of early voting is taking place already. People are already making their decisions. So I believe New Hampshire is reliably going to be a Democratic state this election. Moving on, we also have the states of Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and the District of Columbia, as well as the state of New York and the state of Virginia. Now, of these states, Virginia is the only one that used to really vote Republican at all, but it's lately shifted very reliably Democratic, especially after their political shifts in the around 2016 and 2018. We've seen that voters' opinions are changing in Virginia, and I think that Virginia is going to be a reliably Democratic state in this election as well. Moving on to the safe states for Donald Trump, we have Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah. We have Alaska, North and South Dakota. We have Nebraska's at-large election. Moving back over to at-large, we have Maine at-large for Joe Biden, as well as the first district are very likely for him as well. Donald Trump will likely carry the first and third districts of Nebraska, as well as Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia. All of these states are very likely to go to Donald Trump. He leads by double-digit margins pretty much across the board. All of these states have reliably voted Republican for the last several elections. I don't see any of these changing anytime soon. So all of these will go for Donald Trump. Right now we have 196 safe electoral votes for Joe Biden and 125 safe electoral votes for Donald Trump. We're going to move on to the battleground states as well as the Rust Belt. I'm going to start with a couple of these Rust Belt states just because a lot of them are very unlikely to go to Donald Trump. Starting with Minnesota, Real Clear Politics has an average on Minnesota of Biden being up by 6%, and that's actually the low end. 538 average has him up ahead by 7.9%, as well as giving him a 92% chance to win the state over Donald Trump. So, Minnesota, which also voted for Secretary Clinton in the last election, I do believe it's going to go for Joe Biden this time. Also have the state of Illinois for Joe Biden. Almost forgot about that. That's a Democratic stronghold, very unlikely to go to Donald Trump as well. And the state of Michigan, I'm going to give to Joe Biden as well. Donald Trump won this state by less than a percentage point. It was a huge upset during the 2016 election. Trump only has a 6% chance of winning the state again this time. Biden has been up by about 8% on average in Michigan. It is definitely the most blue of the Rust Belt states this election on average polling, and it is well outside the margin of error. It doesn't look very likely at all that Michigan will be able to flip in favor of Donald Trump. We're going to go over to Nevada next. And Nevada is a state that used to be a battleground state as well as Colorado, where it would go for Republican sometimes and go for the Democrat and others. I remember in the 2004 election, George Bush won this state over John Kerry, although in the last election, especially in 2016, Hillary Clinton won this by a fairly comfortable margin. It was about 5 percentage points, I believe. And the demographics, usually in polling, Democrats get underrepresented in Nevada. So I believe that Nevada is going to outperform its polling. Currently, it has Biden at a 90% chance to win over Trump with a 6.3% lead on 538 and an RCP average of 5.2. So I think he's going to win by about those margins, possibly even larger. Moving on to the state of Arizona. Arizona is a state that used to reliably vote Republican in previous elections, although in this election cycle, it has, although slightly consistently supported Joe Biden in polling. He's up by about 2.5% on the Real Clear Politics average. He's up by 2.9 by 538, and he has a 66% chance to win. This is not an unlikely state for Trump to win, but it is possible, but it's not likely that he will win. It's going to be one of the states that if Trump manages to win re-election, very unlikely. Arizona is going to be one of those states that he's going to have to carry first before a lot of others. We're going to move on to the state of Texas next. Now, Texas is an interesting case because it used to be a very reliably Republican-leaning state. Although across the last couple of elections, we had Beto O'Rourke in 2018, very close to unseating Senator Ted Cruz. And the state has continued to shift slightly to the left ever since that 2018 Senate election. I do believe, though, that especially thanks to some recent polls that have shown Trump up by +4, +5, and the average polling that has consistently favored Trump, I do believe, wrong color there. I do believe that Trump is going to win the state of Texas. It might be a very close race, but I don't see it going to Vice President Joe Biden. This is going to be a state that is likely going to be decided by just a couple of percentage points, but I do think that Donald Trump will carry that state. We're going to move on to the state of Georgia. Now, Georgia is another state that has, in previous elections, reliably voted Republican, although it slowly shifted over to the left. The race was surprisingly fairly close for the southern state. In 2016, Hillary only lost this state by a couple of percentage points. It's considered a toss-up in this election, with Georgia favoring Trump 54-46 by 538's projections. But depending on which polling average you're looking at, one of the candidates leads. Biden's leading by 538's polling averages only by 1/3%, just about. And same thing for Real Clear Politics, but Trump is leading by a little over 1/3%. So I'm actually going to categorize this as a win for Donald Trump. I think this is going to be a very, very close race. This might be a race that does not get called until very late into the night, if it even gets called on election night. But I think overall, this is going to be a state that Donald Trump is going to win. after all of the early votes are counted, I think that the gap might close up here, but I don't think that it's going to flip. Next state we're going to talk about Iowa and Ohio. Starting with Iowa, I believe that Iowa is going to go to Trump. Then this is a state that could be a toss-up. Some polling averages place Joe Biden ahead here. Some polling averages place Trump ahead here. Lately, Biden has enjoyed a very, very slim lead. It's been about a percentage point based on both 538 and Real Clear Politics averages. But it does have Trump on 538 winning this state about 52% chance. I think that as well as the fact that Iowa and Ohio tend to vote together, and I'm also going to give Ohio to Trump, and I'll explain why in a moment. I think that Iowa is going to go to Donald Trump. It might be a Joe Biden state. We'll see when the actual results come in, but I'm just going to predict that Donald Trump will carry the state of Iowa. Ohio as well, I think, is going to go to Donald Trump. In previous elections, this state was a battleground state that always voted correctly for the eventual president-elect. Although in recent elections, it has shifted to the right. Trump won this state by 8 percentage points in 2016, which is a huge margin for a battleground state like Ohio. And it hasn't really changed. Ohio is the one state in the Rust Belt and Midwest area that has shifted slightly enough that it definitely feels like it's going to be a Democrat or a state that Democrats won't be able to win easily anymore. I think it's going to be a fairly reliable Republican state, if only by a few percentage points. Trump's winning the state 58% of the time by 538's projections, and he's up by 1.5% by their polling averages. And Real Clear Politics also has him up by about 0.5%. He wasn't originally ahead in this state in polling, but Joe Biden never really enjoyed a strong lead. And in recent polls, as well as especially the last week or so, Trump has pulled ahead, and his momentum is probably going to carry him to a decent finish in Ohio. Now, in the state of North Carolina, I'm actually going to give this state to Joe Biden. This is going to be a really close race, but I do believe that Biden's going to have the edge by possibly about a percentage point or two. North Carolina has projections of 65% going to Biden in 538's averages. Polling is 2.5% up, and Real Clear Politics has Biden up by 1.2%. I think that it's going to probably be about a 1.5% difference, but I do believe that Biden will win the state of North Carolina. The large African American population has definitely been breaking in favor of Biden, and with all of the battleground states, I think this one's going to be one of the more Democratic leaning ones, as well as the state of Florida. State of Florida is going to be another really close race. Although 538 does project that Biden has a 66% chance to win this one, and also place him ahead in the polls by about 2.2%, and Real Clear Politics has him up by about 1.5 points. This is a state that Trump managed to win back in 2016. I think that Joe Biden will win slightly, mostly because of the minority population. There's a lot of seniors that are breaking for Biden as well. Typically, the senior population, which is very heavy down in Florida, Trump managed to win that by large margins back in 2016, but he's only leading with the seniors by about 10 percentage points. It's about a 55-45 split in some of the recent polls that I've seen, and I don't think that's enough for Trump to actually carry the state of Florida. I think that the overall state of Florida is going to go to Joe Biden. We're going to fill in the two districts next. I believe that both the second district of Nebraska as well as Maine are going to go to Joe Biden. Nebraska's second is less of a toss-up than Maine's. Nebraska's second, Joe Biden has enjoyed a decent lead by 538's averages. Real Clear Politics doesn't really have that many polls for either of these districts, but in the few polls that there are, Nebraska has Biden favored by a fairly comfortable margin, and 538 places him at a 77% chance to win Nebraska second. Maine is more of a toss-up, although Biden has been enjoying slight leads across the state, and I think that's going to carry over into the second district, and he will win that by a slight margin as well. And then that just leaves Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, which are both very likely to go to Joe Biden. Wisconsin is a state that Biden has an 88% chance to win, and all of the polling has suggested that he is going to be about 6 percentage points ahead of Donald Trump. It's outside the margin of error, as well as Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is about 5.5 percentage points in favor of Joe Biden. These are just outside the margin of error in most polls, comfortably enough that it doesn't seem like Trump is going to be able to gain enough ground in either of these states. These two states are likely to vote together, and if one of them's going Democrat, then the other one is very likely to do the same. So this is the final map that we're looking at. I think that it's going to be Joe Biden 335 electoral votes to Donald Trump having 203. Now, a couple of these states could end up deferring from my predictions. I know some YouTubers have Iowa going for Biden, shifting the stats to 341 versus 197. And a couple of them even have Ohio going to Biden or Georgia going to Biden. I don't think that either of these is going to be the case, but they are possibilities. And speaking of possibilities, we'll go over a couple of the possibilities for each candidate to get to 270 or get as many states as they possibly likely can. Joe Biden, in this case, he could maybe flip the state of Ohio. It would be an incredibly close margin if he does, but it is possible, so we could give that to Joe Biden. Georgia, he could also go to Joe Biden as well. Again, that would be another close race. Texas would be less than 0.5 percentage point if Joe Biden manages to flip it. I don't see it being the case, especially with the recent polls, but it is still a possible race that he could win. And if he does, that would, along with all the other states, grant him a landslide victory. Very unlikely, but it is a possibility. So this is just one outcome that we could see. Flipping the script the other way around, if we wanted to look at all of the states that Trump could likely win that are outside of my predictions, we could see him keep Arizona from the last election, keep Florida, keep North Carolina, and that would also give him Maine second because they're all about this. Maine second is likely to go to Donald Trump before Arizona would or Florida. This gives Donald Trump 259 to Joe Biden's 279. That would leave Donald Trump having to win the state of Pennsylvania in order to flip and get the 270 that he needs. He would likely end up getting Wisconsin as well if that's the case. This is an extremely unlikely scenario, but under the instance where this does happen, this would probably be closer to the best chance that Donald Trump has at re-election. It would put him ahead 289 to 249. The polling just isn't really saying that that's going to be the case, especially with early voting, people already having cast a lot of their ballots. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the outcome, but it is a possibility. Biden currently has an 87% chance to win the election, whereas Trump has a 12% chance to win the election, and that's roughly on par with his chances to win the state of Wisconsin or the state of Pennsylvania. So if he's going to win the election, he's likely going to need those two states. But this is my final prediction. Again, 203 electoral votes for Donald Trump, Joe Biden with 335 electoral votes, flipping Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, and then getting back Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin from the 2016 election where Trump held those states. Iowa is probably the only state that I'm really questioning could go either way. I think that Joe Biden could win that by a very slim margin. I am going to give Iowa to Donald Trump just for this prediction list, but this is overall what we could be looking at after all the votes are tallied. Thank you so much for watching my prediction list. Let me know in the comments below if there's a certain outcome that you think is more likely. I'll link a couple of different sites that you can use to fill in presidential electoral maps in the description below so you can share your own thoughts and opinions. And thank you for watching and have yourself a good day.